Okay, so when you start the trip phase, or they call it the trip stage, I guess, you can clean up your city board and put it to the side and all the cards and tokens that were on it. You won't need that. So this is the phase that we're traveling from the city back to our shelter. So what you'll do is you'll grab the main rule book and look on the back of the book where you have this map. Now, we were in city number 3. This was something that we rolled at the very beginning, and it just kind of randomly picked a city for us. And the way this works is we're trying to make it from there back to our shelter. Now, the trip phase is pretty simple. We're going to, normally you would just start here, and then you would pick a path that you want to follow along the roads to the shelter. I know there's lots of glare here. Let me try and angle this a little bit. The way this works is that you're going to follow along a road, and you're basically going to pick which side of the road you follow. So you can see if we were going along this road right here, on this side of the road, all of these terrain icons are yellow, and on this side of the road, all of the terrain icons are red. You're going to follow that side the entire way. It's your choice, and really what it means is that if you follow the yellow side, then you're traveling along what's called a known path. I guess thematically, your survivors are familiar with that territory. And at each of these points along the way, you're going to draw a travel event card and resolve whatever is on the card. If you take the other way, with the red side, they're traveling along the unknown path, I guess territory that they're not familiar with. So what you'll do is at each stop along the way, you will, instead of drawing an event card, you're going to roll dice and resolve this. Now, some of these results will have you try an event card, draw an event card if you roll a skull, basically. So it looks like really the only difference between the two is that it doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter what the terrain is. If you go through the unknown route, you're probably going to draw fewer travel cards on average. So I'm not really familiar with the travel card deck, but it sounds to me like maybe travel cards are mostly bad. I guess we'll find out. So let's move on with that. Now, normally you'd pick the path yourself that you'd want to follow in the campaign mode, but when you're playing the survival mode like we are, it's actually decided for you. So you're going to roll a die, and this will determine what path we're going to follow when we leave the city back to our shelter. So let's just see what we get. So we got the green star. And that's probably the best one. It says we're going to travel to the shelter from the city you are in. So I think that's just take the most direct route. These other results, especially the skull, is going to have us travel through the furthest city away. So the most direct route looks like from here, we just get to move across here and over there. If we rolled the skull, it looks like it would have forced us to travel all the way around the map to the opposite side of the city, and then from there travel up, just basically spawning more travel events. So I'll go get the travel deck, and we'll start traveling along the road and see what happens. Okay, so here's our travel events. So this is another one of the larger tarot size cards. I've shuffled that up and put it to the side. Normally I just leave these in the box when you're in the city mode because they're not useful at that point. And I did quickly clarify the difference between taking the known and the unknown route. So we're going to go along this path, and if we take the known route, then at every single point we are going to draw a trip event card. If we take the unknown route, then we're going to roll a die at that point, and if we get a skull, we're going to draw 2 event cards at that point. So we're taking a little bit more risk, but we might be able to get through it drawing fewer events. So they say to just use like a character marker to mark your progress on the road. And I'm going to take the unknown route. I'm hoping that I get a little bit lucky with die rolls. I think there's only a 2 in 6 chance, so that might cut down I think when you're taking a little bit shorter of a route, which we are, it might cut down on the total number of events, as long as you don't roll too bad. Lastly, before we start rolling, I just want to point out that when you leave the city, your character's status is retained the way it is. So, I mean, you still have your health and stress and infection and all that kind of stuff at whatever it was. Your items and equipment don't change. Your backpack and ammo counts don't change. If you were to have any like infection status effects, those don't go away. So all your character stuff remains completely persistent when you leave the city and go into this trip phase right here. All right, so let's start going along the path. We're gonna go to our first part on the road and start rolling dice and drawing trip events. All right, so let's see if we find anything on the first point, and of course we hit the skull on our very first one. All right, well, this is like forest terrain, so we're gonna draw 2 trip event cards and resolve the forest terrain back to back. So here's our first one, and the forest terrain says the weather is great and you feel very good. You pick up the pace without even realizing it. The survivors each decrease stress and ignore the next trip event card that needs to be resolved on their way to the shelter. Okay, so we got lucky with that one. So instead of drawing 2 cards, we're just gonna draw this one and increase our stress. So we'll heal 1 stress each for both characters and continue on to the next area, which is the mountain. Hopefully we have better footing in the mountain. Nope, of course, another skull. 2 for 2 so far. All right, mountain. You arrive at a large rocky area. You can try to cross it or detour by sliding around the dangerous and narrow path that encircles the mountain. I'm going to pick the detour. I mean, we're so busted up. I just don't want to take risks with our health here. The survivors must decide if they cross the stony area or hug the mountain. Let's hug the mountain. Hug the mountain. As you go work your way around, part of the path breaks off. The survivors each perform an agility test at -2. Those who fail discard at random an object from their backpacks. All right, well, that will only... Marie doesn't even have anything, so that will only affect Shigura. A -2 to his agility still gives him 2 dice, though. So hopefully he can pass this pretty quickly. Nope, he fails. Perfect. I'm really good at these die rolls. All right, so the one object he still had from the beginning of the game, which was this lockpick, he's going to lose while he's shimmying around the mountain there. All right, so that was 1 event down. We've got our next one to go. Here we go. We're on a mountain ridge, and you find a path that diverges. A survivor chosen by the players tries to determine the correct path. That survivor performs an awareness test at -2. Well, that's definitely going to be Marie. She has the better awareness of a 4, so she's going to roll her 2 dice. And she succeeds. So let's see what happens. After some time walking, you realize you are in the correct path and nothing happens. All right, so Marie leads us through the lost area without any issues. So that's 2 events for the mountains, and we can continue. All right, so we're moving into this area, and I just realized that the rules didn't really specify whether or not you have to stay on one side of the road or the other, or if you get to like decide once again. But in the examples that they show it being completely one path or the other. So that's the way I'm playing it, but it's just another area where the rules are not really specific and clear either way. So we're still on the unknown side. Let's roll our die and get our inevitable skull for the 3rd time in a row. All right, finally we get a reprieve from the events. All right, so that's where we were. Let's go... Actually, I think that's it, because then the road goes down here and straight into the shelter. So, all right, we made it through the trip phase without too much problem, and that was really quick to resolve. Okay, so we're in the shelter phase now, and each of the buildings in our shelter here, you can see I've placed these red tokens on these spaces just because we haven't actually built any of those buildings yet. We're in our first day here. We're going to spend up to 8 days before we go back out to the city to try and get some supplies and complete some objectives. And besides our sheet here depicting our shelter this way, we've got a little worksheet over here. So I've named the shelter Alexandria, and at the very beginning of the game, you're always going to start with a fence resistance of 3. That's just kind of your default value. So we have a fence lining the edges of the shelter, but it's not depicted as an actual location over here. This fence resistance can fall through random events that can happen in the game. There are no basic buildings built yet, so when we do build them, we'll check them off here, except for the perimeter fence. We don't have any victory points. We would have earned some victory points if we completed our objective back in the city stage, but we didn't. So I've just recorded our 2 survivors, Marie and Shigura, and I recorded their current amount of survival points over here. Okay, so next I've removed the tokens for the garage over here, the infirmary, and the supplies. And this is because for your very first shelter stage, the game allows you to start out with 3 basic buildings of your choice. So these have not been built yet, so we have the do not enter. But we get to start out with 3 of our choice at the basic level, and I picked those 3, so we'll get to use them during the shelter stage. I've also marked that over here on the shelter sheet that we have the basic version of those 3 buildings. Hopefully later we can earn some victory points and turn those into advanced versions of the buildings. If we do that, then these tokens would get marked like this just to show that they're even better. And the better versions are just going to be more useful to us. They'll do the existing things that they do typically, but better. So I think that's enough explanation. We can just get into actually using the buildings. Each day out of the 8 that we're going to spend in the shelter is split into 2 different phases. During the first phase, your survivors are each going to get to use 1 of the different buildings. And then after that, you'll get a random event that you'll look up in the book. Then you'll move on to the next day and rinse and repeat. All right, so for the first day, Shigura over here is going to go over and make use of the infirmary. So let's take a look at that. The back of the rules has a section for each building, at how to use it and how to build it. So if you don't have it, you can only take an action to build it. So it's going to cost 1 victory point to build it. If you have the basic version, these are the different actions that you can take, which we do have the basic version right now. So Shigura is going to be able to take one of these basic actions. You can see we can do either a basic assistance, an infection treatment, or building improvement. For the building improvement, we would spend a victory point that we don't currently have to get the advanced version of the building. So maybe we can do that later. Over here lists any kind of costs in order to take that particular action. So you can see eliminating our infection if it's at a high level in the infirmary, we just can't afford right now unless we want to spend a majority of our survival points. So right now, the easy 2 options that we have is we can go for basic assistance to just regain 3 health, and infection treatment to eliminate infection if we're only at level 1. So I'm going to have him regain 3 of his health. Marie's going to do the same thing and regain 3 health in the infirmary. Now, the rules don't specifically state one way or another whether or not multiple survivors can use the same building in the same day, but it does say that you can keep using the same buildings over and over again. So I'm just going to extrapolate from that and assume that you can keep going to the same building. For Marie, she healed up another health, and now both of them are in the kind of medium zone for yellow health. They have 5 and 6 respectively. After each survivor gets an opportunity to take any one action around the shelter that they might want to, then you're going to do one of 2 things. You're either going to resolve a regular shelter event, or you're going to resolve a catastrophic event. And that's determined by this track over here. So as long as you're in the green for how many turns and how many days you spent in the shelter, you're just going to get a regular event, which tend not to be quite as bad. But the longer you stay, the closer you're going to get to this 8 mark. And at that point, once you reach day 8, every single time you continue to stay in the shelter, you'll get a catastrophic event instead, which are obviously going to be a whole lot worse. So that means that you can stay in the shelter as many turns as you want, using the actions to kind of heal your characters up and improve. But the longer you stay, the closer you get to the catastrophic events before it's time to just move back out to the city because things are getting bad sitting at the shelter with nothing happening. The shelter events are listed in the back of the rule book. There's no deck of cards to resolve those or anything. And by default, they have you roll these normal 6-sided dice and look up the number on a table here. And they have you do this twice because there's a range of different events that go up to like 66. To make this a little bit easier, though, I'm not going to use the dice with the game. I'm just going to use some standard D6s. So my red die is going to be my first number, and the blue die is going to be my second number for the event. All right, my day 1 event is going to be 6-4, so let's look that up in the book. All right, so 64 is called Pet. You've seen an animal wandering around the shelter for some time, but whenever you approach it, the animal runs away frightened. This time you want to try and catch it. We're going to choose a survivor at random and see who's affected by the event, and that survivor is going to perform an agility test and check the total amount of successes that they roll. So let's do the coin flip again and leave Marie as the regular heart. All right, that's the result we wanted because that's Shigura, who has better agility. He's got an agility of 4. He'll be a lot more capable of catching this. Let's do the die roll. All right, here's Shigura's agility test. And it looks like we've got, wow, we still only managed to get 1 success on all this. All right, so it looks like our reward is that we get to draw an ally card. You catch the animal, and it's got to be an animal type of ally card. So let's take a look at the ally deck. We're just going to flip through these one by one until we find our first animal randomly. So let's see what we get. We've got a physical therapist. I'm guessing that's not an animal. There's no animal icon down here. And a Doberman. That sounds like an animal. And there's the animal icon. Okay, awesome. Okay. Cool, so Shigura has a little pet Doberman following him around. The benefit, so as long as he's an ally, he can perform an action. Oh, look at that, they misprinted these 2 icons. So it says you can perform a special attack against a action. What they mean is they meant to move the skull over there. You can perform a special attack against an enemy in your area with no action cost. Cool, so it looks like you can just keep using him to try and bite zombies in your area. But if you roll a skull, then he's going to run away. Yep, so you discard it if he's sacrificed, which is something you can voluntarily do in special situations. And if you roll a skull when you perform the special attack. Cool. So this Doberman does not give Shigura any of the leadership points. You see the 0 over there. So that means that he would not become the leader and take it away from Marie. Again, that doesn't really have much impact on the solo play. And then that little horse icon is its loyalty, or actually that's a dog. So this particular pet doesn't ever require us to make a loyalty test. Under some circumstances, the allies that follow you could be asked to make a loyalty test, and if you fail it, they might leave you. So we don't have to worry about with them. Cool. I'll set this next to Shigura, and then we can move on. All right, so it's day 2, and we're going to have both characters spend the day in the infirmary as well, healing of another 3 of their health points. They're both really busted up. So I've already marked that, and we'll just grab our dice and roll for an event here. Okay, so I rolled number 32, and that's a quiet day. So when this happens, this is going to be related to your specific characters, and the special events are on the back of the character sheet. So we'll go take a look at that now. On the back of each character sheet, they have an event to resolve if that character has a quiet day in the shelter. So we're just going to roll a single die and then perform the result here. And as a classic move, I got the skull result. So you've been quite interested in a girl in the shelter, and you spend your free day trying to get close to her. You're going to test your, is that agility? Oh no, that's willpower, at a -1 penalty, and apply star result. I don't know what that apply star result is. Let's just do the willpower test and see what happens. She has a willpower of 2, but with a -1 penalty, she just gets to roll 1 die. She does still succeed, so she still gets a star. Let's see what we got here. I guess we got to turn this over again. So 1 star. The girl's not interested in you at all and threatens to hurt you if you don't leave her alone. You leave dejected, and you increase your stress by 2. Well, that kind of didn't work out at all. All right. I got a star result on Shigura for his quiet day. He's going to spend his day training in the forest, happy to leave your confinement and feel free for a while. So let's roll a die. I actually got a star result this time. So it says, while training in the forest, you find a place that's new to you. Your attraction to the unknown inspires you to move faster. He's going to gain +1 agility for the next city stage. Oh, that's pretty dope. I don't know how we're going to mark that. I think we'll probably just use one of these +1 tokens and put that next to his agility stat as a reminder. All right, it's day 3, and one more day in the infirmary will get Shigura healed back to normal. Marie's already at max health, so she's going to use her action to heal her 1 point of infection, which is the only level of infection that you can actually heal in the infirmary without having to spend resources. So I rolled Snake Eyes for the event that happens, and keeping thematically, they made Snake Eyes a horrible event. So we're going to get a zombie attack attacking the shelter. Now this one's kind of complicated, so I'm going to go through this one little by little. First, we're going to draw a number of the zombie spawn cards, double the number of survivors. So let's just go get 4 zombie spawn cards, and we'll go through this step by step. Here's my 4 randomly drawn zombie spawn cards, and the event tells us to use the red level of zombies, which is the worst version of this event, so rolling Snake Eyes was super horrible. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the type and number of zombies, and for each individual miniature that would be, we're going to reference their kind of cards here. And for each miniature, look at how much survival points that miniature would be worth if you killed it. So we need to add up that total number across all 5 cards. So for example, the vermin right here are each worth just 1 point that you kill. So this card would contribute 5 points to that pool. So let's just add up that whole number, and then we'll see what we do with it. The number I got after adding all of those zombies together was 23. So that's abstractly going to represent the number of zombies that are kind of surrounding and attacking our shelter that we're going to have to go defend. So the next step is to take that number of 23. That's going to represent dice. And that's going to be dice that the zombies are going to roll to destroy our shelter. But we can subtract from that pool of dice by spending different types of resources to try to help defend the shelter. So first off, for each survivor we send out to fight them, it's going to remove 5 of those 23 dice. For each of the ammo that we spend, we'll remove 1. We could get rid of our Doberman, and he would take out 3, and we could start spending a bunch of survival points 1 for 1 in order to discard dice. All right, so once we decide how much we want to try defending the shelter, we're going to take any of the dice remaining out of that starting pool of 23 and roll them. And then for each of the skulls that we roll, we're going to decrease our fence's resistance by 2. Our fence resistance is only a 3, so it'll fall pretty quick. In addition, every survivor who decided to go out and defend the shelter is going to have to roll a dice to see if they suffered damage or infection. Okay, so I took a look at how much we can spend for resources to lower the force of this zombie attack against the shelter. And we could completely negate the attack if we sent both of the survivors out, and we spent all of our survival points, and we sacrificed the new dog that we caught, the Doberman that's following Shigura around. The thing is that that'll kind of put us back to square one at the beginning of the campaign again. Now, if we don't spend just an overwhelming majority of those resources, chances are we're going to completely lose the fence, because even just one skull is going to take our fence resistance of 3 and get it down to a 1. So the chances of us rolling 2 skulls across all that is going to be pretty high. So because I'm more worried about just surviving for one more round of the city stage, I'm just going to leave the fence completely undefended. Now, the game doesn't completely come to an end as soon as the fence gets torn down or anything. I think what happens is that if you have no defenses in your shelter, it's just going to leave you vulnerable to some of the random events that can happen. So I think I'm just going to take the risk of leaving everything undefended, and then see if I can get the fence built back up in a future shelter phase, maybe. All right, so I've taken our defenses down to 0. Nothing else happened in that zombie attack event. It didn't tell me to do anything as a result of losing the fence. So I'm just going to move on to day 4 here. And both of us are just going to spend time in the supply building here. And the action that we can take there is to just gather supplies, which is our food and water resources. That'll just go up by 1 because it's the basic building. But that really will help when we go back out in the city to have at least something to eat and drink when we need it. And on the 4th day, we found a secret cache. So as we were walking, we found a small secret cache of someone of the shelter. Okay, somebody who lives in the shelter, we found their cache. We don't know what to do with it. So we're going to choose a survivor at random who was affected by the event, and they must decide whether or not to steal the cache. I already went ahead and did the flip and ended up with Marie over here. So Marie can either steal the cache and just gain 1 supply and draw an object, or she can not do that and gain 2 survival and decrease stress by 2. We're definitely going to steal that cache. Let's get another supply for her, and she gets to draw an object card. I already gave Marie her supplies, so let's see what she gets from the search deck. Some trapping equipment. Okay, we haven't talked about traps yet. I haven't really gotten a chance to use them, but I'm excited to give it a try. So this is going to go in her backpack and take up 3 spaces in her backpack, but maybe we'll get to use this in the next city phase. And on the 5th day, Marie went over to the garage to recharge some batteries. Before we go back out to the city, I thought it'd be a good idea to have at least a little bit of batteries charged in case we find some flashlights or something. And Shigura still has 1 level of infection, so he spends the day in the infirmary to get that removed. So let's go see what our event for day number 5 is. We got another quiet day. So for Marie, I rolled the blood drop. So the day goes by with no incidents and nothing happens with her. Let's check out Shigura. All right, Shigura spends another day in the forest. So we're going to roll again to see what happens in the forest. I'll go ahead and do that one on camera, I guess. And we get the blood drop. So we're going to train for a while, running through the forest with no incident, and we return to the shelter exhausted. We're going to just gain a survival point. I'll take it. It's day 6, and Shigura is going to spend the day getting some supplies, and Marie's going to get some ammo this time, just in case we find a firearm while we're out in the city. And later in the day, we came across a snake. So we're out walking quietly in the shelter open space when we're going to choose a random survivor to perform a awareness test. I already did the coin flip, and I got Marie here, so let's do the test. Marie has great awareness at 4, and she rolled really well. So let's go see what our result is. Just before you take a step, you hear a hissing sound that alerts you. You look at the ground and find a viper in the middle of your path, and you kill it. Oh, great, nothing happens. Okay, well, that was eventful. All right, well, it's day 7. We may as well spend one more day in the shelter. So both characters are going to go over to the garage and get some more ammo. And for the day, we rolled this hunt event. Because of the food shortage, a hunting party has been organized in order to increase the shelter supplies. The survivors who want to join the hunting party roll as many dice as ammo they decide to discard. Okay, so we're going to get to go out and hunt, and it looks like then we'll roll dice and try to get some good stuff out on our hunt. It looks like the good stuff doesn't happen until we get 2 stars. We did gather quite a bit of ammo. We got 3 ammo between the 2 of them, so I'm going to go ahead and have Marie spend the 2 ammo. We'll see if we get super lucky and get a whole bunch of supplies, I guess. Or actually, what are we going to get? We'll get as many supplies as stars obtained in your maximum roll. You know what? Actually, on second thought, I think this is a really dumb idea to go out. Chances are we're just not going to get anything in return and just waste our ammo. Both characters already have 2 supplies, so I think we're just going to stay home and avoid this one. All right, I think we're going to call it. That's it for the shelter phase. So let's take a look at the shape our characters are in, because the next thing is to just go back out to one of the cities, and we'll randomly roll dice and see which city we go explore. So Shigura kind of came away nice from the shelter phase. He ended up with his Doberman companion over there that he's going back out with. He was in pretty dire straits, but he's back up to full health again, and he got rid of all of his infection. He got a little bit extra survival, so he's up to 9 survival now. He gathered 1 ammo from the garage, and he's got 2 supplies. And he doesn't have any battery power, though. But he also got this event, which is going to increase his agility by 1. So he's going to have 5 agility for the city phase, which is going to be pretty great. So he's definitely, even though we didn't find any good items while we were in the city last city phase, he's definitely going back out into the city in better shape this time than he was last time. Marie over here is in a similar state, not quite as good, but she's fully healed at 9. She got rid of her infection as well in the infirmary. She's sitting on 4 survival. She's still got a little bit of stress, but it's still in the green, so I'm not too worried about that. And then for supplies, she's got 2 ammo over here in case we find a weapon. She's got 2 supplies as well, and she even has 1 battery that's recharged in case we find a flashlight. And she picked up this trapping equipment, which we might be able to make use of when we go back out. So that's it for the shelter phase. This would be one kind of complete play session, I guess. If you were getting together with your friends, this would probably be a good time to stop. I know that's a lot of videos and hours that I've been playing this on here, so who knows how long this would actually take to go through all 3 phases when you're actually playing. But we'll pick it up with the next city phase in the next video. Roll some dice and set out to try to find some more items for these guys.